Welcome to the Blow Up the Blueprint podcast, where it's all about how to use creative thinking in your business for a standout brand. With your host, Joe Gifford.
Welcome to this episode of the Blow Up the Blueprint podcast with me. It's Joe Gifford here, joined by the lovely Cailen Ascher. Hi.
Hi.
I'm going to totally confess that we just did a whole little thing and we were speaking for a few minutes and it was going awesome. And then I had this moment of we're not recording. So we've just kind of done a little preamble and I'm just going to come back over that again.
Sounds good.
Hello, my lovely. So I was just complimenting you on how wonderful you look and you were telling me that you have an 8-month-old child. And
I do. Yeah, I have a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old, both girls.
Both girls. Oh, my twins, both girls as well. That's awesome. And you're back to doing interviews, having taken a break.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm ready. I just launched a brand new program. I'm feeling good.
Cool. So I want to hear all about this. So, for anyone who's not heard of you, who hasn't encountered your work, then tell me all about it.
Yeah, so I'm a coach for women entrepreneurs, and I didn't honestly know what that meant for many, many years. I was like, I know I'm supposed to be working with women and helping them, and now I've been doing it for probably 3 years now, and I've really hit my stride helping women do what I've done, work less, and while working less, still expanding their business and maintaining a nice work-life harmony. I think balance feels a little stagnant. Harmony feels good. And so that's what I work with my ladies with. Let's figure out what the container of time you have is that's available to build your business and put the pieces of the puzzle into that container. And it works a lot better when we focus our energy. I found that's when my business took off, when I started working just 3 days a week. And there's really something to that, getting clear on your boundaries around your time, your professional time and your personal time. And so that's what I love talking about. And that's what my whole program's about. It's what I live and teach and everything's about that.
Beautiful. We're going to delve into all of that because all of that was just gorgeous. That's up in there. I was like, I love how you've created this for yourself. So let's take a step back. Have you always worked in this manner with this harmony, or has it been something which developed for you?
I always wanted it. I didn't always believe it was possible. So for probably the first 7 years of my entrepreneurial journey, when I'm doing all sorts of random things, trying to figure out what I was supposed to be doing, I'm blogging and teaching yoga and working in social media, like doing all over the place, trying to figure out what my thing is. And there was this mindset, I guess, where I thought you had to hustle to be successful. There was a lot of masculine advice out there about how that, you had to stay up till all hours and work an 80-hour week. And then you'd have this tipping point into success and then you could back off. I really didn't like that idea. It sounded
You're like,
awful.
that's not working for me.
Yeah, it sounded awful. But and so then I had this thing of like, I'll never be successful because I'm not willing to sacrifice my life away. And then many, many years later, I'm married and we're, moving forward in our lives and find out we're pregnant. And I'm like, whoa, I really need to think about this whole work-life balance thing because I don't want to be a mom who's working crazy hours, making just okay money and not have time with my little baby who's arriving. And so I took some time off right after she was born, kind of figured out what I was looking for, deciding if I wanted to keep working at all. And then I was like, you know what? One more time, one more shot. I could get childcare for 3 days a week. Thank you to my mom and my sister. They're like, we'll help you out. We'll come play with our grandbabies and our nieces. And so I tried it. I tried plugging my business into 3 days, working from like 9:30 to 4:30. And it wasn't an immediate change. It felt good at first. But then over the next 6 months, working half the time, if I was working about 20 hours a week instead of 40, I made as much money as I did the whole previous year. And I was like, hey, there's something to this. And so I started exploring it even more and getting more structured and started outsourcing things and just made these incremental upgrades that allowed me to maintain the work time that felt good, those 20 hours, while having a lifestyle I really enjoyed. And the money piece was kind of this cool thing that sort of started taking care of itself because I think I just started acting more professionally because I was setting some clear boundaries and figuring out how to function more like a CEO rather than just sort of a hobbyist.
That's a huge piece, isn't it? And I think that, a lot of people, myself included, skirt around that kind of experimental area of I'm freelancing, self-employed, kind of doing a bit of this, a bit of that. And like you, I was kind of lecturing, I was doing a few days teaching and lecturing. I was doing some written work. I had my own sort of design agency stuff going on. I had fingers in all these pies, but only up until like the last few years, has it been that I've stepped up to say, this is my container. These are my boundaries. This is how I work. This is who I work with. And for years, I was still taking on like all the clients because it felt wrong to not do that and working all of the hours. And it's so freeing when you realize that you get to design your schedule.
Yes. Yeah. That, like, where did it come from that we should just like let our business dictate our schedule, dictate our lives? You know, I found at the time I was very reactionary. It's like reacting to my inbox, take care of that. So a client would come up with an issue and I'd find myself spending way too much time thinking about their business and their issue instead of my own. It was like,
so how do you maintain those boundaries? So, you know, to say, because I'm still not brilliant with this, I always have to kind of keep a check on it, because when you love what you do and you aim to serve and all that sort of stuff, and especially when you work with clients around the globe, it's easy to sit there with your phone and be, I'm just going to look on my Slack and just check that thing. Where, oh, look, there's that thing. Oh, cool, I'm going to be on that. And then you suddenly, it's evening time and, you know, you haven't spoken to your partner in about 3 weeks. So, so how do you manage that in your life?
It's not perfect, right? It's like, I don't have it all figured out. I actually like.
Thank you for admitting that, though.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I actually was just talking to a woman who created this 3-day workweek schedule freebie, like just a template to design your ideal work week. And I wanted to talk to her. I was like, hey, it seems like you're working this. And she was so much more scheduled and organized than I am. It's like, oh crap. Like, you know, you could give me something, but I think
you just confessed that though. Actually, last week I saw one of my clients with this really beautifully designed, you know, sort of content schedule. I was like, that's awesome. She's like, well, it's your template. Like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. And I think the thing is for me now, like I've been living it for so long that I just kind of find my rhythm with it. And there's some days where I do work too long. I push myself too hard and I can find the energy dipping in the afternoon. And I'm like, okay, I get it. Like I shouldn't be working right now. I'm not putting out my best stuff. And then, you know, right now I'm in the middle of a launch and I'm tired, right? Launches, there's so much buildup before you even open the doors that by the time the doors open, you're like, is it done yet?
I finished now. I don't want to talk about it anymore, let alone. Yeah. I love that though, because I just wrote a piece today on Medium about the kind of internet marketing, you know, the lifestyle stuff where people aren't keeping it real, where there's, you know, we gloss over the days where it's not so, it's like, I only work 2 hours a month, you know, from my week. And I'm like, okay, cool. But, you know, has it always been the case? Is it always really sorted? Or have you got your system? You know, is it like that? And I think we need to hear that. I love the fact that you use the word harmony and not balance, and that this is a growing, flowing thing. It's not just, here's my 3 days, I'm sorted.
Yeah.
You probably have to check in with yourself, do you, Cailen, too?
I do. And like today, I still wearing my comfy pants that I wore on my jog, and I haven't yet showered. But yeah,
I'm just showing Cailen my legs for you. That sort of dead air piece there.
Yeah. So it's, you know, some days, some things got to be left off the list. And some days, like when something comes up with one of my kids, it's like my daughter had her first, she's 3. She had her first field trip last week. And I was like, I can't miss this. And it was like plunk in the middle of my day, middle of my work week, like, you know, from like 11 to 1 on a Wednesday. I was like, all right, well, can I move stuff around? I'm like, this is the reason I have this business, so I can do this stuff. And what am I going to remember more a year, 10 years at the end of my life, working on that Wednesday or being there with her? So
I had a really organized inbox on that Wednesday, but you know, I kind of missed out on my little one's field trip, and that's beautiful. I am always so grateful that if my kids are poorly, if they need me, I hop on the phone, or you know, I'll get my VA to just kind of jump in and say, guys, I need to move things around, and I have no qualms with that now, and because a lot of this is about working with the right people as well, isn't it? You know, both for your team and for your clients. My clients are like, cool, no problem. And we just kind of jump on and move it around. Whereas I know when I was trying to crowbar the wrong way of working with clients who weren't right, it was very much, well, that's not professional to move things around. You know, the family's like, you know, but now it's totally my gig. I'm like, it is professional. My family comes first. If my clients had to move something because of their kids or whatever, I'd be like, absolutely, I want you to do that. That's important. And, you know, I think that, again, there's perhaps that masculine energy of what isn't professional and what you should and shouldn't do. We can tear up the rule book.
Yeah, I know. I'm over that.
I'm so over that, because, you know, these little people aren't little for long.
No, they're not. They grow up so fast.
Honestly, my girls are 8 now. I've got twin girls, Eva and Mia, and they're 8. They are beautiful and terrifyingly grown up right now. And we're kind of edging towards like the teenage sass and the eye rolls. Like,
oh my.
Seriously, Mum? I know we're not that far before it will be, the social media and stuff like that. And I want to be able to be really present with them and have an impact in their lives in a positive way. And I think that partly being an entrepreneurial mum, I know that they're really proud that I do, my own business stuff, although they have no clue how it works. They're just sort of like, you seem to sit by your computer and money comes. I'm like, yeah, that's all I do. I just sit. Yeah. I think that the growth mindset that entrepreneurs have is a great thing to have with your kids and be able to talk about that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. I know I'm a better mom for being an entrepreneur. Like just showing them what's possible. That's something that you can just think about can become something that then helps people and brings in money and freedom in a bunch of different ways for your family. It's such a cool system for them to be exposed to. But talking about kids not understanding what you do, my daughter knows about like 3-Day Workweek because it's what everybody talks to me about and what the program is and all that. And she's like, Mommy, are we going to 3-Day Workweek? I was like, no, baby, we're living 3-Day Workweek. And mommy's trying to teach other mommies to do 3 days of work because then they get more time with their kiddos. And so it was like this really cool thing of she doesn't get it, but she's living it.
She knows it, but how lovely that she knows the terminology and the concept. And see, I remember my first kind of insight to outsourcing and leverage was, of course, the Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week. And at the time I was running my, little design agency. And when I think a lot of people have that moment when you read that book, you're like, everything's going to change. I'm going to outsource my life. It's all going to be 25. And I think because it was my first real taste of, okay, I can see the possibility. I mean, but his backstory makes it very different. He was running a very different business model to most people. You need to couch what you read in that with imagination and apply what you can take for you. Do you sense any resistance when people come to you? What resistances do they have to designing their own schedule in general?
Yeah, so obviously they all want it, right? It's like, oh yeah, obviously I want to work fewer hours and make more money, but it's the mindset piece is a huge one of I don't believe that this is possible. And then that coupled with, I don't know, okay, if I'm starting to warm up to believing it, I don't have a framework that's for me. Like my 3 days, maybe someone still has a full-time job and they're trying to figure out how to build up their side hustle in their limited hours. Maybe someone's working 70 hours a week and just wants to cut back to 50. So I've done my best to figure out the principles behind 3-Day Workweek and what has worked for me, what's working for my clients and the women I talk to so that people can apply it to whatever is their ideal schedule for now. And knowing that's going to change so that, in 6 months, you might say like, how I was cut back from 70 to 50. Now I want to cut back to 35. And you can keep coming back to those principles and making those incremental upgrades and living into it so that it feels good and you maintain that harmony that we were talking about.
That feels, but even just saying that, by making those incremental changes, it feels like it's fluid. It feels like it's a working thing. It's a work in progress. It's a working template and framework. That feels immediately doable, doesn't it? As opposed to, and now you're going to lose 2 days and immediately, like a lot of us might panic about, well, what if our clients need us in those 2 days? Okay, so things like that. What steps do you have in place for those days when you are unplugged? Are you unplugged entirely?
I do a pretty good job of being unplugged because of the kids. I think that makes it easier because my priority just shifts. It's like them. Before I was a mom, I don't know if I would have been able to do it as well as I do now. Although I always did sort of hold my weekends as sacred. It was like, I need breathing time. Like I always knew that. So as far as talking about these shifts that people can start making, I think the first piece that's really helpful is just bringing some awareness to how you're currently spending your time. Like before we start changing things, like what are you even doing now? And so I always encourage people to do a time inventory. And just set a timer on your phone throughout your workday. Maybe do it for like 2 or 3 days. And just every hour, like just make a few notes, like what you spent that last hour doing. And you'll soon realize where you can like cut some stuff out immediately, where you can start batching things. If you're being very reactive, like, oh, I checked my inbox 47 times throughout the day. Maybe I could cut that down to 5, maybe just once an hour, and then cut that down to maybe twice a day. And this isn't even stuff that I necessarily do for myself always, but like checking in with it once in a while, I'm like, oh yeah, let's remember that I don't need to constantly be in my inbox and like sifting through everything. So I find that just that first step can start shifting things without you even making conscious choices to shift it. And you also can see where you can outsource, because if you're like, oh, I spent so much time doing this stuff that I'm not really that good at and I don't really enjoy, that I could pay somebody a 20, 30, $50 an hour to do, and then I could get another client who pays me more money. You can start seeing where you can play with it a little bit.
It's like when you track money, isn't it? If you're not consciously trying to work on getting more. The fact that you are aware of it and being aware of your time is so important. I know on those days when I have 2 longer work days and then 3 shorter ones. So I do school pickup 3 days a week, and I have 2 days where my partner does school pickup. So we just kind of switch it around. And when things blow up or the agency side of work is getting really busy and I'm a little bit like 3:30 is coming around really quick, then, on those days, I am uber focused in my Pomodoro sort of Trello thing. I'm like, right, this is 10 minutes and I'm away from my phone. I'm away from anything else. I'm not doing anything else other than that task and staying calm. And when you focus, your productivity is so much more impactful, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. There was actually a morning a few weeks ago where I literally had like a half hour of time before I needed to go do something. And this was probably on like a Monday where I wasn't normally working, but I had like 10 things I wanted to get done. I was like, this is never going to happen. And then I got it all done in like 22 minutes. I was like, oh, what just happened? It was one of those time magic moments where I was like, aha, this is how we do it. You give yourself that container and you the thing is you expand. Like, I felt this, and I love this analogy, like you move into a bigger house or a bigger apartment, and suddenly the stuff that you had in the place that was half the size, it expanded into all this more stuff everywhere. And we do the same thing with our time. When we have this vacuous work week, we just fill it up. And if we start shaving it down in ways that feel good and appropriate and then give us back life on the other side of it, we get all the same stuff done. And the stuff we don't get done never needed to get done anyway. It was probably stuff you felt like you should be doing.
The shoulds, and also setting those expectations with clients and other people, because if we're entrepreneurs who are real sort of people pleasers, a big lesson for me was that actually the client doesn't expect me to email straight back. The client is fine if I email back like an hour or 2 or maybe even half a day. And actually when I first had my twins, this is 8 years ago now, and I was running my design agency, so I had young twins, my chronic fatigue and endometriosis at the time, so 2 massive health issues were still flaring, as they would when you've got young twins as well.
Yeah.
So I had a few things going on, and I was like, I'm running this business, had the kids. It compelled me to find ways to work smarter, which I still use today. So I hook up all these workflows to let tech do the heavy lifting, whether it's hooking up things that, that when I finish a Facebook Live, the transcript arrives in Trello, or whether it's automating certain processes in my email so that they can always know who to go to and these are the steps and follow this to eliminate myself. And I remember sorting those things out so that when I was sort of pushing the pram to baby groups or whatever, knowing that was taken care of, knowing my clients were being served and that my team was serving them. And now that I'm doing content agency stuff, so my team is there doing it, I have to trust that I've brought on the best people who, my production manager is in there sorting out the content for clients, my VA is in there sorting it, my clients know when they're talking to me, and I need to let go and be the CEO. And sometimes CEO means being on your bike and going to different cafes to get a head break and perspective because you work better.
So true. Yeah, the breathing room is so essential. And I don't know where we got this idea that the best way to function in our businesses is to just like work all the time, all the hours, doing all the things, because nobody does that. Like nobody can do that. Like any amazingly successful, high productive person that's super efficient in their business and super successful is doing all the things all the time, all the hours. They just aren't.
No, you can't. It's not sustainable. If you're going through like a heavy growth period or a launch like you are, and I know there's certain times where I don't mind picking up some hours on the weekend because I'm like, right, we're in expansion. This is fine. I'm going to do this and this, set up the processes, hand them off. I can see the light there, but I'm not going to be in on this forever doing, on weekends. And whenever it's busy, or in fact, just anyway, to show up in your business, you need to eat right and go to bed on time and all the usual, which is like self-care that enables you to be that entrepreneur in those concentrated days or hours even that you are working on it. If you're doing your side hustle and you're wondering how to build it, you need to do your self-care. You need to make sure you've slept. You need to make sure you're eating some good whole foods. You need to make sure that you are finding those breathing spaces, because you can't hamster wheel yourself to success, can you?
No.
Where does that come from? That's such an expectation, isn't it? It's almost like an inherited concept.
Yeah, I think for women, a lot of it comes down to like the guilt. It's like, oh, if I want this to be successful and maybe I'm relying on a partner or, savings or something, that then I should be doing everything I possibly can to make this work. And that means working all the time. And really that just leads to burnout, loss of passion, less ideas, less creativity, and you wanting to stop doing your business because it's not sustainable. And if you build yourself up to a certain point where the only way to make that money you're making is to work a crazy amount of hours, that is a really tough place to then recalibrate and embrace this idea of working less, but then still expanding because you're at a point where you're at a breaking point. You're at capacity.
Have you read the book Play It Away by Daniel? I've forgotten his last name now, but I'm going to pop it in the show notes.
No, I don't think I have.
He's lovely. So he was on Tim Ferriss's team. It sounds like I'm Tim Ferriss, bashing today. I'm so not, a lot of his stuff is awesome, right? He's a really interesting guy. So this guy was on Tim Ferriss's team and was behind the scenes of one of his big events. And in that kind of culture, he talks about how it was quite the norm to have these extra, sort of chemical help. They were staying up all the time, like, sort of body hacking his way to be able to stay present and do sort of days at a time to stay awake. And he hit burnout so hugely. He was in a massive pit of depression and breakdown for ages. And
oh my gosh,
is now really vocal about it. And I think it's great to hear a guy talk about it as well. Because I know that in our female entrepreneur circles, I'm really honest about burnout. I'm really honest about when things aren't right. And to hear a guy say, do you know what? I hit rock bottom. I never thought I was going to come back up. I burnt myself. My adrenals were fried. I couldn't think properly. And he's now built play as being a major part of his day. So if someone says, oh, let's have a meeting, it's like, well, let's grab a coffee and walk or play catch in the park and do it that way. And I think oftentimes people don't believe it's possible until they've hit that really painful burnout place where you can't function anymore. And you might feel it starting on the edges where you are struggling, you're not sleeping, your body's not working right, and you can't work out what's going on. And it's just not worth it, is it?
Oh, it's so not worth it. And I love you mentioned that concept of play, because I think a lot of people don't realize how important that is. And play is not my default nature. Like I tend to be like, okay, let's make a plan and hence like my whole business is built around like a 3-day schedule. But I find it really interesting that most of the time, my new and best ideas come to me while I'm in a yoga class, going for a walk, in the shower, spending time with my kids, talking to my husband over a glass of wine on the porch. Those are when the good ideas come, not when I'm like hammering it out my computer, like I must make this work. We need that to give ourselves a break because that's when the ideas wedge themselves in the cracks.
That is where the creative thinking occurs. And we talk about this a lot on this podcast, that you need to build in those downtimes on a daily basis. And actually kids know about flow and play more than anyone, don't they?
Oh,
when I play with mine, whether we're playing dress up or, which at the drop of a hat I'll do, there. Yeah. Or we're, whatever it is, or we're out in the kind of autumn leaves like we were today, or whatever it is, they are present, they are playful, and they have amazing imaginations. And I can see that even by working 3 days and having the other 4 off, you've automatically built in that space. And I'm glancing at my creativity research journal here. There's a study in there, which I'm going to link to in the show notes, which talks about how, sort of productivity increases hugely when you are in a flow state. So by being able to link that as an important part of your business DNA, it's important to go and play. It's important to get out from behind your computer, because this is not where the magic happens. The magic happens away from the screen, because there's like a million screens everywhere, isn't there?
Yeah, they're all over.
Away from all the screens. That's not where it happens. Sure, let's jump on. Let's connect with people. Tech is a wonderful thing. I get to speak to you. We get to connect with loads of people, and we get to run our businesses remotely if we want to. But that is not where those hits of inspiration or those incredible ideas, which are game changers, happen, is it?
For sure. I mean, in the tech piece, it's like all this stuff is here to be in service of what we're doing, not for us to be a slave to it. And so I feel like a lot of us are in that place where it's like, oh, I need to be engaged and on and present and all the time in order for success to happen. It's like, I don't know. I'm so about changing this. I'm creating a 3-day workweek movement where we realize that we can create success on our terms. We don't have to subscribe to someone else's version, which is probably the 40-hour work week was implemented in like the beginning of the 20th century or maybe even earlier because laborers had 8 good hours a day.
So it's like, well, let's stay with that model, not question it.
Yeah. So, okay, here I am, a mom in the 21st century running an online business with all of this new technology and all of these new advances. And yet we're still subscribing to a system that was put in place
and also
over 100 years ago for men.
Doubling those hours, going above and beyond that and layering it on. Like I see this now with millennials. I have a brother and sister who are younger than me. These guys work like 6 days a week because there's a corporate culture, there's an expectation to work that hard. And they're working like from 7 in the morning until 8 at night, 6 days a week. And it's like, guys, you don't have to do that. Like that's not, it's not sustainable. And they're kind of like in their 20s. So it's sustainable for now. But at some point there'll be a breaking point, sadly, with lots of these, whether you're in corporate or, whatever it is you're doing, you can't work like that, sustain, and sustain any output of any meaning. And there's an expectation sometimes in these cultures that validates you. Yes. I'd rather be validated for working less and for being with my kids all covered in paint. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'd rather someone went, that's awesome.
Yeah. I hear you on that one. 100% for sure.
Cool. So what is your program and where can we find out more about this amazing 3-day week?
Yeah. So I have, first of all, my opt-in, my freebie is that 3-day workweek schedule that I mentioned. And so anybody can grab that at my website, CailenAscher.com. It's right on the homepage, easy to find. And as far as
it looks gorgeous as well. I've downloaded it. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It's, we did a rebrand, what was it, a year ago, 2 years ago? And it's so pretty now. Everything's so pretty. It makes me very happy. As far as the program goes, I don't know, when is this interview airing?
It'll probably be in a couple of weeks. So that'll be middle of November, 2017.
Okay. So the program will be in full swing at that point, but the program is called 3-day Workweek. And it's exactly what we were talking about. It helps women bring some awareness to how they're spending their time, then create their model calendar, whatever that means for them, for the container of time that feels appropriate and good. And I have a lot of women who are moving into the program who are moms who want to be working from home with more time for their kids. There's a lot of newer entrepreneurs who want to set their businesses up right from the start instead of trapping themselves working too many hours. Obviously, there's seasoned entrepreneurs who are like, I'm working all the time and I'm ready to start optimizing things and be working smarter. And then there's people in full-time jobs who are like, I want to get my side hustle going and I've got this little container of time. So it's anybody who wants to figure out what that looks like, that model calendar, and then fit their business in a more strategic way into that time. So they have a framework that works for them.
Gorgeous. So if we get your beautiful opt-in, then we can stay in contact with what's going on with your program when the next one opens the doors.
Exactly.
I love it. So how often do you run it?
This is the first time I'm running it. So I'm thinking I'll probably do another launch probably first quarter next year and open the doors again. And then it'll probably be 2 times a year, maybe 3, depending on, what feels good. But I talk about this all the time, so if you get the freebie and you're maybe start hearing from me, it's what I jam on all the time because it's what I live.
Yes. Well, guys, I'm going to put the link in the show notes for Cailen's amazing opt-in. So I'm going through it, going through those, it's a beautiful template. So I want everyone else to have a look at it, so check her out. It's such an important mission as a mum and as an entrepreneur. I'm so glad this is your, mission, and I'm going to join you on that, sort of shouting about the working less to achieve more. It's such a huge part, and I've talked about it on the 3 podcasts that we've recorded today, whether we're coming from an intuition angle of how that works in your business, or whether we're coming from a practical time angle, which allows you to play. Working smart allows that creativity, which not only gets you amazing results, which feels really counterintuitive, but it's the way forward, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Because you find, we've talked about it a lot, you find that flow state because you're listening to what truly resonates for you and your lifestyle. And then when you start working during your optimal hours, that's really key, right? We all have better hours. Some of us are morning people, night people, you need to figure that out and then things start moving.
I need to have a cat nap, literally, with my cat scheduled in the afternoon, like at least 2 days a week. I need to curl up with a Bengal and just have a little chill. And that's my little reset time. And I know certainly in my schedule, I need to have at least 2 or 3 days where I'm working in a cafe or sort of co-working space. But, the other times I need to have no humans. I need to be around no humans and just kind of be in my little shell of introversion. And it's important to know all these parts of yourself that has to fit with that picture of your family and your work and how it all goes together. So I can't wait for everyone to come and check you out and just come see what you're up to. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you, Jo. This was awesome.
Oh, it's awesome to have you on. Thank you.